Hi everyone, I am Ranjita HV. I am pursuing my engineering in Sri Venkateswara College of Engineering. My branch is Electronic and Communication Engineering. Today I am going to discuss about the principles of communication. The course code is BEC 403. Firstly, we are going to discuss about the introduction to the amplitude modulation. What is meant by this amplitude modulation? Amplitude modulation is a modulation technique used in electronic communication, most commonly for transmitting the information via radio waves. In amplitude modulation, the amplitude of the carrier wave is varied in a proper in the proportion to that of a message signal being transmitted. This modulation technique enables the simultaneous transmission of audio and other data over the long distance. Basics of amplitude modulation. The carrier waves in amplitude modulation is high frequency signal that is modified to carry the information signal. The amplitude of the carrier wave is increased or decreased according to the varying amplitude of the message signal. The amplitude signals contains the original information signals and can be demodulated at the reverse to the original data. Advantages of amplitude modulation. The amplitude modulation is the simple and the cost-effective modulation technique compared to the other methods like a frequency modulation or the phase modulation. It is widely used in broadcasting for AM radio transmission due to its ability to cover a long distance. The amplitude modulation signals can also be easily demodulated using a simple circuits, making it accessible for the receivers. Disadvantages of amplitude modulation. One major drawback of amplitude modulation is susceptibility to noise and interference, which can degrade the quality of the transmitted signal. The AM signals occupies a large bandwidth compared to the other modulation techniques, limiting the number of channels that can be accom- accommodated in a given frequency range. The power efficiency of the amplitude modulation transmission is the power than that of the other modulation methods, leading to higher power consumption for the transmission. Applications of amplitude modulation. Beside broadcasting, the amplitude modulation is used in two-way radio communication radar system and the aircraft communication systems. The amplitude modulation is also utilized in medical devices for transmitting signals from a sensor to the monitoring equipments. In industrial application, the amplitude modulation is employed for remote monitoring and the control of the system. Here we can see in this picture the amplitude modulation. Here the message signals are going through the modulation and we get the modulated signal and by the use of the carrier signals. The analog versus the digital the amplitude modulation. The analog, the AM that involves the continuous variation in the amplitude of the carrier wave to represent the message signal. The digital amplitude modulation, on the other hand, that quantizes the amplitude level of the carrier wave to transmit the digital data. The amplitude modulation offers the improved signal quality and the robustness against the noise compared to the analog AM. The signal sideband amplitude modulation. The signal sideband modulation is a variant of the amplitude modulation where one of the sideband is suppressed to reduce the bandwidth required for the transmission. This technique is more bandwidth efficient than the transitional the amplitude modulation, and it is commonly used in long distance radio communications. The SSB, the amplitude modulation, requires the complex modulation and demodulation circuits but offers the improved spectral efficiency. Ver- Vestigial sideband amplitude modulation. The VSBAM is the another variations of amplitude modulation where one sideband is partially transmitted to require they reduces the bandwidth while preserving a signal quality. This technique is commonly used in television broadcasting to accommodate a multiple channel within a limit frequency spectrum. The VSB amplitude modulation requires the specialized filtering and demodulation techniques to recover the original signal accurately. The frequency division multiplexing with amplitude modulation. The FDM is a technique that combines the multiple signals for transmission over a single communication channel. In the FDM with the AM, the each signal is modulated onto a separate carrier frequency before being combined for transmission. The FDM with the AM is used in the synchronous where the multiple signals needed to be transmitted simultaneously without the interference. A conclusion for the amplitude modulation. The amplitude modulation is a fundamental modulation technique that enables the transmission of information over our radio waves. The dissipate its limitations, the AM remains widely used in various applications such as broadcasting, communication system, and in the industrial monitoring. The understanding the principle and the variations of the amplitude modulation is curricular for designing a efficient communication system and ensuring the reliable signal transmission. Thank you, everyone.